Hi, Mark here, trust you're well. Welcome to this week's micro learning session, which was recorded on Wednesday the 8th of January 2025. In this session, we look back at what Adobe released in their latest updates in October and December 2024. Now, if you'd like to come and join me on one of these Lightroom shorts or our Lightroom community, just to visit us on Eventbrite. That's lightroommark.com/Eventbrite. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and ask a question in the comments. Now, without any further ado, let's jump across to recording. Bye for now. Right, a couple minutes past. Let's get going. So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this micro learning session for some things that have recently come out in Lightroom, Lightroom Classic, and we're going to look at one in Camera Raw as well. There are lots of new things they did a release Adobe did in December. They did one in October and they did again one in December. Some things have come out of beta or pre-release, so they're now in the full versions. And I thought I would pick a few of them and just go through them tonight. I'm looking down here, looking at my notes so I don't miss anything. So I thought I'd just go through them and just talk about them and just explain my thinking and some things that you may not know or may already know. So let's share screen and let's go into Classic. So in recent versions or updates, major updates, so that's normally in October most year, we've had this dreaded pop-up that comes up. It says Lightroom needs to make a new catalog. Lightroom needs to regenerate all this information and rewrite it. Well, we've always been worried about, if we go to our catalog settings, is it going to corrupt our catalog? Where is our catalog? And we get these multiple lists of catalogs. So it'll say the name of the catalog, and it will say V12 point or -3, V12 -4, then it will go V13 -2, 3, 4. So each time they do it, you'll get a new catalog. So we're building up these millions and millions of catalogs, which we don't need to keep, just like a backup. We don't need to keep them. Once a few weeks or months have gone past, we can remove, delete, put to our archive the old catalogs. Well, what they've now done in Classic is they will back up your current catalog. So the next time when it comes out asking us to do this, it'll back it up and will rewrite over your existing catalog. So we're not having all these multiple catalogs. So it'll create that backup and reconfigure the catalog. What also is new in the catalog settings is we can rename our catalog. Finally, at last, we can rename the catalog to something that we want to rename it. And we can also rename the parent folder. And we used to have to do that outside of Classic and go through all the rigmarole of finding that again. So we used to have to go to catalog settings, find the catalog, show the catalog, rename here, and then go and open that catalog and rename there and so on. Now, if we go up to the file, come down, we've got rename catalog. And we can rename this. This is called training. It's my training catalog. As most of you know, I have a training catalog and a training license. And we can rename the folder if we wish. Nice and simple. And in going forward, although I don't have the keys or any inside information to Adobe, it will continue to preserve that naming structure rather than putting, we used to have what, V13-1, then it was 2, then it's 3. It won't do that anymore. Okay, So that's your first little tip. Now, for some of you, if we take an image into the develop module by pressing D on our keyboard, we would want to take this to Photoshop. And we can do this several ways. And again, there are millions of ways of doing lots of things that I will show you. Editing Photoshop. Okay, we can do that way. We can go Command or Control E, and that will take it into Photoshop. Now, if you run different versions of Photoshop, it will take, historically, it will open the last version of Photoshop you opened. Well, now under Preferences, so Lightroom Preferences or File and Preferences, depending on your operating system, we've got under the second tab, we've got External Editing. You can select the version of Photoshop as default you want it to open. Now, if you want to, in a particular instance, open it in another version, when you go right click, it will give you the opportunity to change the version or give you the ask you the question, do you want to open this in beta? Do you want to open this in the full, excuse me, current version? So that's relatively new. And I thought that was important to share that if you run the beta version, or older versions, and you might say, well, why have I got older versions of Photoshops? You might have particular filters or third-party plugins that are no longer available, and they don't run in the new version of Photoshop. So you might have Photoshop version CS6, for example, which is 10 years old, I suppose, maybe even more than that. And you've got a filter or an action that is no longer supported. So you might keep that on there and want to open it to do a particular functionality. Okay. So talk about tethering for 2 seconds. Nikon did a big update earlier in last year for Sony. Sony cameras weren't tethered. Tethered is when you plug your camera by cable. You can do it by Wi-Fi, but it's a little bit slow in my experience. But you can do it. You do it by cable, and when you take a photograph on your camera, it'll appear automatically in Lightroom Classic. Well, Sony users have been asking for that for years, and the reason why it wasn't there was that Sony had the keys. There's AKA, I think it's called, or something the initials are, which is a bit of software that they need access to. And for whatever reason, Adobe couldn't get access to this file or this structure, this machine code. So they created their own. So they stepped around the problem Adobe did for Sony cameras. And I think it was the middle of last year it came out. Well, now Nikon is fully supported everything they've done, where historically it was the F-mount cameras and a few of the Z-mounts. Adobe now supports full tethering. And what you can do with tethering, you can take the photograph. The shutter button is within Classic. So Nikon fully supports tethering. I don't use tethering. I haven't for years. Perhaps I'll do an evening of that one Wednesday, and we'll look at what they call auto import as well. So, which is part of tethering. So let's have a look at file exporting. This is something that's really new and really interesting with credentials. So under metadata, where it is now, let's just come down. There we go, credentials, it's up here. Let's close all these so we can concentrate on one area. Okay, so we've got credentials. It's an early access, so that's beta. And we've got some new functionality here. And what it is, it's about putting your information in the file. It's not about stopping somebody else taking your image. It's about writing on export some information into the file, some additional information. So we can select your published content credentials. And this is a part of it's the early days of identifying what is a real image. Where did this image come from? So it's about credibility in news and media and putting your information on an image that you might send to a stock library. So we've got producer, and you can manage all this by hitting the manage button. It'll open up Adobe's account, and you can type in all the information that you so wish. So if you've got a Behance account, you've got an Instagram account, X, LinkedIn, you manage it all from your Adobe account, and it'll bring that into Classic. So you can decide whether you want to publish your data that you've got in your IPTC, your connected accounts, so your LinkedIn, your Twitter, or whatever. At the moment, Facebook and YouTube isn't supported. And then the edit activities. So the edit activities, did you do a sky replacement? Did you cut something out? Did you use artificial intelligence to create a mask and then change a certain thing? So it's going to export all that information from the catalog into the actual IPTC data of the file. So that's what content credentials are. And there's going to be more coming to it. If you don't want it, just turn it off and it won't include it. If you do want it, you can publish, and you can select with when you publish a photograph, when you attach it as a file, or when you do both, and you can select the options you want. But it's one of those things, watch this space. Really, really interesting. And there is an organization that people like Adobe, Nikon, Sony, Fuji, Canon, etc., are funding, are supporting. So there is a common understanding of how all this credibility of an image, of a video, of audio can be preserved and verified. And have you altered it or anything like that in the future? So that's content credentials. Develop presets. So we're in the develop module here. So if I come to presets on the bottom, on the right hand side, and there's a load more active presets. So the ones with the plus on are these presets, adaptive. So we've got the auto ones there, and we've got here adaptive. And what that does, it uses the AI to analyze the sky, and I put more drama into that sky. Okay, so let's change my sky. I can darken it if I wish, and it changes. It uses the AI to change the parameters. There's pop, there's blue hour, golden hour, and it is looking at the data, looking at the ingredients and manipulating the ingredients for each of them. So we got the sky, there's 7 new ones. There's subject, so pop the subject. So there we go. So you saw that, what it thought the subject was, and it's learning. So let's just go and change a photograph. All right, so let's take this lady here. Let's go into develop, and let's go to some portraits. So darken deeper skin, make the skin more yellow. Let's wait for it to pop in. There we go. It's gone a bit more yellow. Make it orange. There we go. Red. So these are all adaptive presets. Now I like that. That's a bit of orange, bit yellow. Okay, and you can add all these, blur the backgrounds. We can look at skin tones. So in all different skin tones for each image. So there's lots more adaptive presets. It learns, it uses the AI to go through the different presets, and there's 7 new ones. So let's have a look at remove tool. Let's have a look at this image here. It's an image that I haven't done anything with. Let's take it in the develop module, and let's look at the remove tool. So we've got the remove tool. Most of us will know where that is. It's up underneath the histogram in the middle. And the first icon is an old pencil, the eraser, the rubber on the end of the pencil, turning it upside down. And we've now got these tick boxes and some more settings here. We've got some tools, etc. But the use generated AI, this is where, in conjunction with that content credentials I showed you, this will know, it will tell when you export this image, it will, in the content creation, it will tell that whoever that looks at the information, it will say, this image has used AI to generate whatever you've done. But we've also got detect object, which again, it uses AI to detect the object. Now, in the old days, we used to have to draw all the way around it. Now we can just loosely scribble over it and it's going to detect it. And it's not done a bad job. Still missed a few bits out, but I can go add. I can add some more. I'm just going to scribble on. Away I go. And it'll add away, add to the content, and I can subtract if I wish. Take away here. But what I can also do, if I go cancel, I can use the AI. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw around it. I'm just going to draw around him. And it's done a reasonable job. I can subtract parts that I don't want. So like that. And I've gone over. So let's come down, just draw in there. And then I can go remove. And again, it's using the AI to look at the subject and give me 3 different versions. And I think the second version is probably the best of the 3. And I go generate. Now this does use one of your credits. I think you should get 100 credits on the photography plan and 250, I think it is, on the Creative Cloud plan. But you can, again, we can come this side here and we can select different generate fill. We can remove. So we can use the generate fill to come to the bike, just draw around loosely around the bike. Something like that. It's going to select the area, slightly bled over. So I'm just going to subtract and then just come down that side. So again, I'm telling it not to retouch that bit and remove. So using the AI, it's using the content aware, and there we go. Wouldn't know that it was ever there. Okay. So, but that action, what we've just done, those 2 actions, okay, would be recorded in File, Export, if we had this on, edits and activity. And in the future, my opinion, I don't have any inside information, this will be as default. You won't turn this off in the future. This is us getting us used to these changes. So that's that. Noise reduction. So I'll quickly, because we're running out of time, we'll look at some noise reduction, which is under detail. Noise reduction. They have now expanded the range of files that it works on. Still doesn't work on JPEG, to the best of my knowledge. But it now works on the Google Pixel RAW file, and it works on the Apple ProRes RAW file. So what denoise does is you click the denoise, it analyzes the picture and takes the color noise or the grain or the contrast noise automatically away, and you can look at the preview, it generates it, you can adjust the amount, and away you go. So there are new file formats that it supports it. So that's that. So HDR. we won't spend any time on HDR because most people haven't got an HDR monitor, but keep my book open. Shift H will now open the HDR panel, and we've now got previews for HDR. If you have an HDR monitor, you'll be able to see a lot more information and process a lot more information within your basic panel. So if we come down here, we've got visualize HDR. So that's the HDR information. So it's overexposed. And we can come down to this section here, and this is showing you a standard preview, but in HDR mode. So if you wanted to edit in HDR, but only had a standard monitor, you could do that here. Okay. So to turn HDR off, you just click on the HDR again. So that's that. Oh, and also another thing is thumbnails support HDR. So you get a HDR preview. So that's new. So Camera Raw. Let's have a look at this image here in Camera Raw. Just to underline, Lightroom Classic and Photoshop uses the same engine, the same processing software, and that is called Adobe Camera Raw. Now, for this instance, I'm going to go right-click, Edit in, Photoshop as a smart object. Now, what I'm going to show you now is not available in Lightroom or Lightroom Classic at the moment. It is only available in Photoshop. So let's bring up that. There's the image. Now, if you double click, which is on the smart object, it'll open, that's in the thumbnail down the bottom right-hand corner in the Layers panel, it'll open it in Camera Raw. This is the engine. It's the raw processor. Now, the new thing is under the profiles. What are profiles? Well, what they are is a way that the software handles the information from the file. Okay, so to give you a scenario, I talk about food a lot, as a lot of you will know. A Italian pizza maker will take the dough and throw it in the air and stretch it and so on, etc. by throwing it in the air and spinning it away. That's the way he handles, or she handles, the dough to make the pizza base. Well, at home, you might just get the dough, plump it on the kitchen surface and get a rolling pin out. That's the way that you handle the dough. Well, a profile is the way that the software handles it. And there's different ways to handle the profiles. Well, in a Camera Raw, and it's not available in Lightroom, it's not available in Photoshop outside of Camera Raw, and it's not available in Classic, is adaptive. An adaptive is an AI. You can see it's beta. It's an AI version. And there's only two at the moment, one in black and white and one in color. But it's a way of handling, so it's learning from each of the files. It's learning, and you can put the amount in and so on, how to handle the ingredients, the contrast, the tonality, the light, the blacks, the whites, the colors, how your camera capture the colors. So I would expect this will come to Classic and Lightroom over the next couple of months as a beta, as a preview functionality. So that will appear, I'll show you in Classic, that will appear, if I take that into D to develop, that will appear in the basic panel here. Okay, we will have adaptive profiles. And I did do an update because I think it's coming quite soon. So it'll appear here. And it does some really good effects. So the other thing in Camera Raw is that also supports the denoise new file formats like Classic does. So lastly, let's go across to Lightroom. Let's come across here. And In Lightroom, we have got some dedicated commands now for Photoshop. So in the develop module, we can click on the dots and go to Photoshop, editing Photoshop. We can now smart objects in Photoshop. We can come up to edit up here. No, it's under file, export, and we can export to Photoshop, and we got edit there and smart objects. So we've got these new dedicated tools that have recently come out to take us from Lightroom into Photoshop, where we didn't before. Now, if I go back to the grid view, we have got two functionalities that have been really requested over years and years and years since Lightroom Web, Lightroom CC, and so on. If you hit your caps lock button and start going picking, rejecting, picking, rejecting, picking, rejecting, you can see that the active image has moved on. Auto advance, okay, has moved on. Okay, that is a new functionality just by hitting the caps lock button. That has been it's a simple request, but it's just come to Lightroom just now. And the other one is there's three things that I'm waiting for, and then I will fully move to Lightroom. And one of them has come. Smart albums. It is only available, albums are only available in your cloud, not in your local. I'm looking at my local drive here. This is my 4 terabyte Samsung T9 drive. I'm looking at the files on here. Albums, which are ways that you share your images across your devices yourself, are only available in the cloud. So let's type the word car. And there's all the cars. Because the image is in the cloud, it scans the content for you. And I can now create, look top right hand corner, a smart album. So I'm going to call this a car, and I'm going to edit the rules. And I'm going to say album included in Lightroom, if it's in the cloud. It's going to search for a car, not a keyword. It's going to search for its content. That's what the cloud can do. And if I'm going to put a new rule in there, I'm going to say I'm going to rate it with 1 star. Oh, let's go 2 stars. Create. I've now created down here on the left-hand side a new album. I'm going to put it into LR. So that's my filing structure. And there is currently no images in there. But I'm now going to go back to my manual collection of or a manual album, and I'm going to put 2 stars on it by hitting 2 on the keyboard. And if I go back to car, we'll wait a few seconds to update. And in a second, no, I didn't save. In a second, edit my rule. It's because I've got the same name. I called it the same name as a collection, as an album. See, I got here as an album, I called it car, and you can't do that in classic either. You can't have 2 collections in the same place with the same name. And I did, I called it car, and I already have one there. So now, if I go to that smart collection, there's one with 2 stars. So let me delete that and show you again, because that was my mistake. So let's delete the album. I'm going to delete that 2 stars. Okay. So I'm now going to create. So let's come off the cars. Let's go car. Oops, I'm looking in the wrong place. So let's look there. Car. Press return. There's all my cars. I'm going to create a smart collection or smart album. Cars, 2 stars. That's the mistake I made. I didn't put any differentiation. I'm going to edit my rule. I'm going to add rating, 2 stars. I'm going to create that. So there it is. And there is the image with a car in it with 2 stars. So, and you can create any collection or album in this case. Things that they haven't done yet in there is there's no thumbnail. If you look on the album, bottom left corner, there's no thumbnail on it yet, but that's going to come to it. So smart albums are here finally. And there we go. So there are some of the new functionality in Lightroom Classic, Lightroom that was brought out the latter part of 2024. Anyone, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Jay. Yes, Jay.
When I do the adaptive removal, I get a little shadow behind it. It doesn't, and that's especially true if it's like in a cloud where there's not much variation.
Mm-hmm,
It doesn't really remove the entire object. It
mm-hmm.
leaves like a little shadow of it behind.
Okay. Yep. And another example to what you're saying is when people, and this is where the object selection has come in now, is when you've missed a part of the selection. It's all about the selection. And if you've missed a very small part of something in a selection, it will say, you want whatever that content is that you're telling me to remove, you actually want it in that space that you've missed. So it's about your selection. So if I could ask you to try and make a more defined selection and remove it and see what that does for you. If
Okay.
you miss something on that collection, you miss a bit of the shadow, it will think, the AI will think at this current moment in time that you want it to include that shadow.
So I noticed that the mask could really be beyond the object. It doesn't have to
Mm-hmm,
be exactly in the object, and the removal was good.
mm-hmm.
So the mask doesn't have to be just the object.
No,
It
no.
can, it,
As a general statement, no, it doesn't. So you saw that man that I cut round, there was a
right,
space around it because the subject or the content around it was very similar. But when you get 2 contents that are like a cloud in the sky and you've got other clouds, it will take that into allowance. It's learning. We're still really in the dinosaur days regarding AI. So it's not going to get it
right,
perfect every time. And that's why we still have the clone and heal tool or
right.
the manual tools to do it ourselves. And sometimes the I would say failure, but it's us telling the computer and the computer understanding what we've got in here and that communication. So sometimes
Right.
doing stuff manually is better for us because it's micro learning for us and we're
Right.
improving our skills. But sometimes, especially with laborious tasks, it's better for them to do it, and they're better at it than us.
Right.
Mm.
Thanks.
Okay, so my response would be look at your selection.
Okay.
Okay, especially if you're using AI to do something. Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else? Any questions?
I, I have another
Go
question.
on then, Jay.
In Lightroom, when it's like searching for the cars,
Mhm.
it's searching for whatever you put into collections in Lightroom Classic. It's not searching uh, all of your files. It's just the ones that were in collections.
Okay, so let's you're using different
Right.
terminology
right.
for different purposes. So are we talking about Lightroom and albums, or are we talking about classic and collections?
Well, um, I'm talking about what you did in Lightroom with
Hmm.
an album. When you made
Yeah.
a smart album,
Hmm.
it looked at all of your stuff in the cloud.
Correct.
What got in the cloud coming from Lightroom Classic
Hmm.
was only what's in collections in Lightroom Classic.
Correct.
So essentially, it was searching your Lightroom Classic collections for
Correct.
cars.
My smart previews in
Right,
classic that have gone to the cloud, only the ones that have gone to the cloud.
right.
All right.
So
So
it didn't search if you had a folder in your a local folder that was of a bunch of cars in Cuba.
mhm.
It didn't
No,
search that.
no, because it's Adobe's computers scanning your images for
Right,
you.
right.
So, and it doesn't have access to your hard drive.
Now, if in Lightroom you can have a local folders,
Hmm.
will it search those local
Nope.
folders?
No,
So how are you going to move to Lightroom?
because you've got a button the um in Classic to, sorry, in Lightroom. Let's see if I can open it. I was trying to close. So when you're in local, you can copy this to the cloud. So top right hand corner, copy this photo to the cloud, and it will send it to the cloud infrastructure. So that's now going up to the cloud, the icon's spinning. If I go into cloud, you'll see it shortly in my cloud images. So that's how you get something from local to the cloud in Lightroom. Okay, so that will appear there shortly. So you
And
just
is
click.
it the preview? Is it the smart preview or the
No,
actual
I'm
file?
when I work in Lightroom, you're sending the full file.
So it'll
That's why
count
it's
to your
still,
storage.
yeah, that's why it's still syncing.
Right,
Okay. It's taken all that time to sync. So that took what, a minute to sync, something like that.
right,
And now it will start syncing. It will appear here shortly. Okay, because it's being processed in the cloud, etc. Okay.
right.
So
Yep,
when you use Lightroom, when you use on a mobile device, a tablet, a web browser, and you a phone, and you send it to the cloud, you are sending the file to the cloud. That counts towards your storage, and then it will
right,
sync back to Classic.
right.
Okay, so it's only
Yep,
when you're searching your content, and it's great for Face ID, absolutely brilliant for Face ID, getting all your people rather than leaving your computer on for ages and ages and ages and ages, and then just sync them in albums and collections, and you Face ID them all. But that's for another day. Okay, but it's only the one that Adobe is only reading your images for you. That's what they're saying when they're in the cloud. And you can type things like red car and it will come back with all the red cars or red truck or whatever and so on. And give it time to scan them, etc. and so on. And it's a search engine on your images that are in the cloud. And then you can use smart collections to show me the ones that are picked, show me the ones that are starred, show me the ones that were taken in this location. And that's across your phone, your tablet, a web browser, and your desktop. And that's the reason why I'm so itching to go to Lightroom, but there's no map module. I know there's individual map for individual images. So I'd like to see what Adobe is going to do with an alternative. I know I could type into the search bar, New York, Johannesburg, London, and all the pictures will come back from there. There's that functionality and color labels. So the 7 or so color labels that we've got. Once color labels is a fundamental part of my workflow, and I'm waiting for that and the map module. So 3 things: smart collections, smart albums. They've done that. It's just time. And once they've done that, I will probably move to Lightroom fully and use Classic as a archive legacy part of my workflow, because I can work on any device anywhere in the world with Lightroom. And I can choose whether I want to use it on a local drive, my images, or have them in the cloud. My choice, when and wherever I want to do it. It's not device specific, it's not device dependent, whatever it is. And I can take the full file anywhere I want to, or just the preview. And I can download it onto a local device, so an iPad, for example, and do a load of editing on a train without internet connection. And then when I get internet connection, it will sync all those edits that I've done. Can't do that in Classic easily. Well, there we go. So that's it for this week. Monday, we're going to look at RAW, profiles, and histogram. So for those that are coming to the Lightroom community on Monday nights, that's what we're looking at on Monday. Recording for this should be up tomorrow at some point on YouTube. Been lovely to see you. No more questions for anyone?
One last
Oh, go on,
question.
Jake. Go on in quickly.
Have you done video?
Yes. In what application?
Mini DV, 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll schedule a 20-minute
Yeah,
session.
just schedule 20 minutes. Yeah, just
Great.
schedule 10 minutes. We'll talk. I use Premiere Pro. I use Lightroom does video.
Right.
Okay, so you can edit your video. You can't put captions on it. That's Premiere or Premiere Rush from Adobe. And you can transmit from Lightroom to Classic a video that you took on your phone and digital asset manage it within Classic. You cannot send a video from Classic to Lightroom. You have to do that externally. But you can go from your mobile phone, your family holidays and so on, send it to the cloud, and it'll come down to the Classic, and then you drag it out the folder into your local storage, and now you've got that locally for you to keep whenever you want to keep it. So, but yes, schedule 20 minutes, Jay, and we'll talk about the video.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Lovely to see you. Hope to see you next week. And whoever I see on Monday, see you on Monday.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Good night,
Bye.
all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Mark here, and I trust you're well. Welcome to this week's micro learning session. As probably most of you are aware, October, most years, Adobe creates a full release. No updates, issues new. Hi, Mark here, trust you're well. Welcome to this week's micro learning session, which was recorded on Wednesday the 8th of January 2025. In this session, we look back at what Adobe released in their latest updates in October and December 2024. Now, if you'd like to come and join me on one of these Lightroom shorts or our Lightroom community, just to visit us on Eventbrite. That's lightroommark.com/Eventbrite. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and ask a question in the comments. Now, without any further ado, let's jump across to recording. Bye for now.